Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Dive Master.
And that is me. I am Greg the Dive Master from Scuba Radio. Check it out every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time, worldwide on the web at ScubaRadio.com and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that kind of thing. But look, we're not here to do Scuba Radio Day. We're here to do Level Up, the podcast for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Willie Cline, the man behind the madness, is with me right now. Willie, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, it's great to be here, Greg. So great to see all these great writers here, too.
Yes, we got a lot to cover here on the August issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. We're going to talk to some of the writers and go a little deeper into what's on the written page of the magazine. But before we get into it, we got to check in with Britton. He is Willie's man behind the madness assistant, maybe. I don't know, or he basically runs a big kahuna. But
There you go.
Britton, I hear you got some big news about the upcoming DEMA Show, our trade-only event. You want to give our listeners and viewers a scoop? What's going on?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. We've officially hit the 70-day mark. We're 70 days out from the DEMA Show in Las Vegas, and we could not be more excited. I mean, we've got some really, really awesome things coming. Our October DEMA issue is going to be bigger than ever, packed with tons and tons of content. We've still got plenty of space. We've still got a lot of space for advertisers, and the best part is that we're distributing at the DEMA lobby. So it'll be right there in the lobby, super accessible to everyone. It's got a printed exhibitor list as well for anyone wanting to promote their show specials, seminars, or new products. Reach out. We've got tons of options for full page, half page ads. So there's something for everyone. The art deadline isn't till the 20th for each month. So there's a little bit of time to work with. And I really can't wait to meet everyone at DEMA. It's going to be awesome. Booth 8075. So come by, say hi. It's going to be great.
And, of course, if people want to stay in touch in the meantime before November, how can, they stay in the loop? By subscribing to both the podcast and the magazine, or what?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really easy. You can subscribe to the Level Up podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So, you never miss an episode. You're constantly up to date. And the magazine is totally free. So for anyone in the dive industry, just head on over to ScubaIndustry.com, sign up for your free monthly issue, and we send out the digital version on the 30th of each month. And the print version gets mailed to all the dive shops across the U.S. as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Britton. That's good stuff. And everyone, make sure you subscribe, stay connected as we ramp up for the DEMA Show in November. The big industry trade show that we all look forward to as people that are trying to make the best of their business in the dive industry. And that's what Level Up is all about. That's why we're here. Dive a little deeper into the pages of the magazine. And first up, we got a good friend of Scuba Radio, and Willie's known him for years. I've known him for years. Scott Jones from Dive Newswire with us. Scott, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
I'm good.
Great.
I'm good. Yeah. So you have made your mark in the industry, Scott, as being the PR guy for the DEMA Show. So the big question for you is, how is PR important for DEMA and your business, for that matter? What can you tell us?
Well, last week was Labor Day, and Labor Day is typically the kickoff time when everybody starts thinking about what they're going to do for the DEMA Show. And I've gone to 25 plus DEMA shows in my life. And one of the things that always happens is that everybody says, I wish I had seen that, or I missed that, or I didn't get around to that. And one of the things that I try to encourage everyone to do is plan ahead. And whether you're going to be an exhibitor, whether you're going to be an attendee, it's important to make a plan, because that plan can help you make sure you don't miss out on anything. For exhibitors, they certainly want to make the most of their investment, because we know it's not inexpensive to participate in the DEMA Show, and you want to make the most of that investment. And I encourage people to send out information as far in advance as they can, so that people know what's going to be going on.
So true. Willie, what do you think of that? Any insight
I
as
think
well?
it's so important. Absolutely. There's probably the most important factor in having a successful show, especially if you're an exhibitor, is planning. And we suggest about a 200-day plan, and we're now under 100 days. So PR is super important in these last 60 days or 70 days of push. And Scott, don't you have a special schedule you're doing between now and DEMA?
I do have a special schedule. It's not going to kick off until the middle part of October, but instead of doing one broadcast a week, we do 2 broadcasts a week because there's a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I want to encourage exhibitors to talk about is that your news isn't just your DEMA Show specials. Everybody has DEMA Show specials, and a lot of people think that that's the only thing they can talk about. But other things that the industry wants to know about are, do you have new staff members? Do you have a new sales manager? Do you have new sales reps in the field that might want to be introduced? Do you have a new product? Do you have a new service? Those types of things. So I just encourage people not to just sit on their DEMA Show specials, but be creative with news, because if there's news, people are going to want to come to your booth to find out what's going on.
Good stuff, Scott, as always.
Great.
Page 36, by the way, in the August issue is Scott's latest article.
He actually has a centerfold this week, this month. 36
Really?
and 37, yes.
What, are you trying to make us go blind? What the hell? Jeez, I like Scott, but I don't know.
News to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear he's closed.
Well,
so
thank you, guys.
You're safe. All right.
Thanks again, Scott.
Good stuff.
So I want to queue up this next person because we have every once in a while a story comes along that is just so riveting and so fascinating that, you know, I'm a huge Olympic fan. I like a lot of people. I love the competition, and when this story broke about a month ago, I said, "Oh my gosh, we got to reach out to this guy. We got to find out what the heck." So I'm going to put on a background here on my picture, and you'll see that this is our next guest, our next contributor, Jeremy, holding up a Naui flag at the Olympics. So, I mean, how do you even cue this up, Greg?
I don't know. He looks like Jason Statham.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, so, you know, that's an upgrade on many levels. Have you ever, has anyone ever said that to you before, Jeremy? Come on. I mean, I'm looking at...
Really? I'll have to tell my wife. She'll laugh about that. She'll think that's really funny.
Great.
She'll be like, "Where's the paycheck?"
Well,
Jason
exactly.
gets, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But that is cool. So you were actually, you know, acting as a diving, videographer or cameraman at the Paris Olympics, or what?
So not really a cameraman. What we were doing, I was working for a company called Under the Water Media, which is a UK-based company that's owned by Simon Lodge, which he's a NAUI member. That's how I came in contact with him, and they need divers there that take all of the static cameras. So those are the photography cameras, not the TV cameras, but the photography cameras, underwater cameras only. So this is all underwater, and place them and then also move them. They have to get moved several times a day because you have news agencies from around the world, and they all want to follow their swimmers. So, you know, Japan wants to follow all the Japanese swimmers, same with the French, etc. So nobody knows what lane those swimmers are going to be in, you know, after they swim a heat, you know, and then you got the finals in the evening. So all those cameras have to be moved, and it sounds simplistic, but the thing that's difficult about it is you got about 30 static cameras at the bottom of the pool, and they all have wires. And so those all have to be hidden and camouflaged. And when you move one from one side of the pool to the other, you can imagine if you have, you know, 30 to 50 wires in that pool and they're all tangled up and snagged, it takes a lot of time to move those things and then re-camouflage them. In addition to the static cameras for the news agencies, there's also all the judging cameras for Omega. So we were in charge of those too, placing those, and they're pretty small cameras. So they get moved quite often by the swimmers, especially in this pool because it was a very shallow pool. At the Olympics, it was only 2.1 meters. And that makes it very difficult because they jump in and it moves a lot of those judging cameras. So we'd have to move those around. But that was our main focus of what we did.
Cool gig. I mean, you know, you hear about people working like at Cirque du Soleil in Vegas and stuff. I mean, this is the same kind of thing. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to put on your resume, isn't it there, Jeremy? What do you think?
It is. It was a great opportunity. It was a total blast. It was a lot of work, but it went by so quick because it was such a great team, and just being at the Olympics in and of itself is a great experience. Being around all the swimmers, getting to see some really famous people, and just to play a part, even if it's behind the scenes, in making that come to life for a lot of people around the world. I mean, there's 1 billion plus people that watch the Olympics every 4 years, or the Summer Olympics. So it was really a lifetime opportunity, and I'm really grateful that I got it. And it was some great diving, even though it was in about 6 feet of water. But it was about as good as it gets, because we just had a blast as a team, worked really hard, and played really hard and had a great time. So
where do we all apply for next 4 years from now?
Okay, yeah, well, you'll have to beat me off first, so you might need to knock me off first.
How do you do that? Is there a competition like a breakdancing competition that you challenge you on or something?
There's not. Yeah, nothing like that. Like, how quick can you put a camera at the bottom of the pool?
Okay.
So no, nothing like that. They're just looking for experienced divers, that want to work hard, and they always have a need or an opening. So you can always contact Under the Water Media at underthewatermedia.com and reach out to Simon Lodge. And he also does not just the Olympics, but he does the World Championships for swimming. So that's going to be in Malaysia, I think, in Singapore next year. So there's other opportunities other than just the Olympics for divers to do this type of stuff.
Love it.
Jeremy, I'm going to butcher the names here, but I got to thank Andre, not Andre. I was just thinking of Nancy. Nancy, how do you pronounce your last name?
Garasco.
And of course Angelo Flory over at Nowie. So apologize for mispronunciations there. But tell us a little about.
It's Nancy Garasio, just so you know.
There you go. Thanks, Jeff. What is your position over at Nowie, Jeremy?
So I'm in charge of special projects and event coordinator. So when you're talking DEMA, I'm like the guy that coordinates all the DEMA stuff for Nowie, along with all the other trade shows. But obviously DEMA is the crown jewel of trade shows in the scuba industry. So, obviously that's where I spend a lot of my time right now, is getting ready for DEMA. So we're really excited to be there now.
I will tell you, you got to go to the Nowie booth at the DEMA show, because all these guys at Nowie are always doing these crazy cool projects, like, diving at the Olympics or working on some major motion picture. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Angelo and all those guys, I mean, they always have some crazy story. Are you part of that, Jeremy, as well? Do you like to share that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I just joined Nowie. I retired out of the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, about 1.5 years ago, and got a job. Literally retired and started working for Nowie the next day. And so I haven't only been with Nowie for about 1.5 years, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there, not just through Nowie, but just in the scuba diving industry as a whole. We always think that scuba diving jobs are just teaching people how to scuba dive, and obviously there is a whole world of opportunities out there.
Well, there you go.
If you want to make a living.
And Jason Statham, what was Statham? How do you say his last name?
Statham.
I better get it right. But Jay, I know you're watching. If you need a stunt double, Jeremy's your man. Okay.
And thank you for your service, Jeremy.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Good stuff. All right. From Jeremy, we go to Alex Brilski down there in Port St. Lucie. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
So you have written a article here for the latest edition of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, page 31, The Role of Bad Photos and Marine Conservation. So the question is, what use are bad photos for marine conservation? That's an interesting
first of all, I'd like to say that I'm an expert at taking bad photos. Having begun in 1969 when I got my first Nikon 2 camera. So, but seriously, that's not the intent. I make a little bit of perspective. I think I got my first issue of Skin Diver magazine in 1967. And back then there were some pretty spectacular photos, but there were probably no more that, at least in North America, than 12 photographers that were capable, I think, of taking that quality of an image. And since then, there's been essentially a revolution with regard to digital cameras and post-processing software. And so what we have today, if you look at many magazines. Alert Diver comes to mind. But many of the online magazines, they're just these wonderful, stunning photographs taken by people that, have no awareness in the dive industry. And I think it reflects, the fact that people are certainly talented, but I think it also reflects the fact that the capability of taking an outstanding photograph is a little bit easier than it was previously. Now, that's great and wonderful, but the consequence of seeing nothing but spectacular photos, I caution, can convey the idea, particularly for people who don't know anything about the ocean, that things are better than they are. Uh, and what the gist of the article is to recognize that, not so much to turn from a wonderful, spectacular photographer to a doom and gloom curmudgeon, but to really at least take into account that there are things happening underwater that people should see that aren't good. There are, lots of problems. Of course, bleaching we hear about, disease, predation, pollution, all these sorts of things that I think need to be addressed to some extent in any kind of editorial coverage, uh, where we have, photos. So it's really a plea to kind of balance the perspective and make people understand that the ocean is in very, very serious trouble. Uh, the IPCC tells us that if we don't keep uh, temperatures under 2.5 degrees, we're going to lose coral reefs by, before the end of this century. And that would just be tragic. And again, this is just a, a perspective piece on how to take this into consideration when people are taking, these wonderful photographs. And in fact, talented photographers, I'm sure, could take wonderful photographs of things that may not seem very, very nice. So just keep in mind that a lot of people who see underwater images don't know any better. They don't realize what the true dire plight of the ocean is.
Interesting perspective. I'll tell you what, I have no problem taking bad photos. I could do that in a heartbeat. God knows. But I see what you're saying, Alex. And I mean, because generally, even an amateur like myself, I mean, I'm not trying to take a bad photo, and you're usually trying to take a picture of something that looks cool, that catches your eye. And just having that extra perspective, like when you do see, maybe some coral damage or bleaching, it may not be a bad idea to take a picture of that just to kind of keep things in perspective. I think that's what you're saying. Am I right?
Precisely. Yeah, we have to, because the problem with marine conservation, particularly coral reefs, is out of sight, out of mind. And most people on Earth will never see a coral reef. So we need to really take into account that what kind of impression that we're giving when they see nothing but absolutely gorgeous, spectacular, pristine photographs.
Yeah.
Which Greg, this is a great segue. Alex, you want to talk for just a second about what you're doing at DEMA? You've got a beautiful seminar planned, and I think it's important. We're going to talk about it again next month, but I want to give you a little preview.
Yeah, Cheryl Patterson with Deep Blue Adventures, who's very much committed to conservation and sustainability, has taken on a role of doing a lot more than I think the typical exhibitor. She has a room set aside for I think for the entire show, for a series of seminars, not only for her clients, but also for people to talk about environmental issues, sustainability. I'm going to do a couple of programs, but also on Thursday morning, we're going to do a roundtable. And I think Catherine actually may be involved in that as well. Where we and Chloe Harvey with the Reef World Foundation, executive director of the Reef World Foundation, will be there and talk about what they're doing internationally with the Greenfins program. So it'll be a great opportunity to just kind of either learn about these issues for those that may not be as tuned in, or for those who have made a pretty strong commitment to conservation and sustainability, to kind of hear what their peers are doing around the world.
Good stuff. as always, from
Excellent.
Dr. Alex Brilski. And you can see his latest article in Dive Industry Magazine. Alex, a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for the update.
Likewise, always a pleasure with you, sir.
All right, now we're moving on to Jeff Cinciparino. Oh, crap, I knew I didn't say your name again.
Cinciparino.
Right.
You got it.
Cinciparino? Cinciparino. Oh, geez. Say it.
Cinciparino.
Yeah, that's what I thought I said.
I got it.
That's
It
what you
only took
said.
me 6 months, not 8 months, 9 months now.
I look at his, I look at his name and I'm like, there's no way in hell I can read that. My dyslexia kicks in. But sorry, Jeff. I did the best I could, which is not very good for most people, but we'll manage. All right. So you've written an article that's on page 24 of the latest issue, The Secret Sauce for Selling Dive Travel. So the question is, what is your secret sauce to your shop's successful dive travel program? What do you got?
So, yeah, it's secret sauce, secret weapon, take your pick. As a dive shop, we've got a lot of things going on. You've got to run the training part of the business, the retail sales, the service, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the travel program. And, as a dive shop, you have a couple of options of how to run that. You can be a DIY, do it yourself, try to handle it all by yourself, or you can engage with a travel agent, what we call travel wholesalers, a travel partner, as I like to call them. And it just really is a secret weapon, maybe not so secret, but it is a weapon. It's something that you can use. First of all, in selecting destinations, when you have a trusted partner, they understand what you like, what you don't like, selecting places. One of the things that I do at DEMA is I'll run around and everybody's there, the travel my travel partner's there and all of the destinations are there. So I'll do it at two different directions. I'll go to a destination, talk to them, and then go back and talk to my travel partner about it and whether it meets what we need or is going to satisfy our customers. Or in the other direction, I'll say, I'm thinking about going to this part of the world. And she'll direct me to a couple of different resorts to take a look at what they have. So really critical in selecting the right destinations for our clients. And then once we do select that destination, they really do all the hard, heavy lifting. They'll get us the rates, they'll get us the cost, what's included, what's not included, taxes, comps, commissions, terms and conditions, all that stuff gets handed to us in a standard manner. So I'm not dealing with, 20 different resorts with different invoices and different situations. So very standard. Then they track the payments and milestones. So I know I'm not going to miss a time when I'm committed for something. So all that's good stuff. But, along that lines is then when something goes wrong, you have somebody that you can call. I was talking to our travel partner about when all the people got stranded in Bonaire this year and what that meant. So they were on the phone trying to get people out of Bonaire with their the dive shop that they were working with. And, here's the other thing. When you're working with a travel partner, we had a lot of success setting up private trips for people. I wrote in the article about, one of our customers couldn't come to the Philippines with us, but wanted to go there, wanted to go where we went. They couldn't get in on their own, but one call to our travel agent and we got them in. And they had a wonderful 2-week vacation there in the Philippines. Another time, we had a couple that's traveled extensively with us, and they like to do a lot of trips on their own. They wanted to go to Belize. Well, they worked with us. We got them all set up at a wonderful resort in Belize. 2 weeks before they left, the resort told us they were closing that week. Panic. One call to the travel agent, we got them into another resort in Belize. They came back and told us it was the best vacation they ever had.
There you go.
So, I don't know if it's your secret sauce, secret weapon, or whatever it is, but when I talk to our travel agent, they say, you got a lot of hats to wear. Why do you want to wear some more? And you take care of the shop and we'll take care of the travel.
There you go. Well, yeah. I mean,
Very cool.
you're talking about just delegating, these questions and resources and developing your network, your personal network, which is what we do at the DEMA Show. That's a big part of the DEMA Show, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things. They're good at what they do, and hire the experts.
Yeah, let them do the heavy lifting for you. All you got to do is connect with them. Right.
You quoted our good buddy Tim Webb from Caradani. He said, "We offer peace of mind knowing your trip investment is safe, as we're licensed, insured, and bonded." And that means a lot these days with a lot of unstable travel stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff. Great article, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Up next, we got Richard Thomas. The pros and cons of starting the tech program on page 27. So, Jeff, what are the top, what are 4 pros and cons for a retailer to start a dive tech program? What do you got for us?
Well, some of the things you see right off the bat with tech that are attractive to a dive shop owner would be it's so much gear, right? Some people think that tech diving means technology diving. It's actually technical diving where we have to train more, but there's a lot of gear involved. And so you're going to sell a lot of gear. Typically, there's better margin dollars in tech because the items cost more, not necessarily better margin, but margin dollars. So you're making more. Travel opportunities, to do technical diving, you got to go travel, and you can there's less competition when you're putting together a good travel program for technical divers. And then divers that are really experienced and are just kind of losing their passion, and you start to see them less in the shop, getting them into technical diving, even just the introductory levels, it really re-engages them and gets them fired up and keeps them going with scuba. On the other side, there's some downfalls, and there's quite a bit of capital layout to begin with, compressors and gas boosters and different cylinders and whatnot. Having your shop prepared to handle tech divers when they come into you. When they come to you, they're going to expect everybody at your staff, all of your staff, to know how to do the proper fills, how the gear works, and the technology that goes along with it. One of the big issues I found is the instructor dynamic. If you're not a technical instructor and you're a dive shop owner, you're relying on the tech god, as they come across sometimes, because they have all the experience and they're guiding your program. That was one thing that I struggled a lot with as a technical instructor before I owned my shop. Once I own the shop, and I talk about it in the article, sometimes things can get away if you don't have your finger on the pulse. With tech diving, you have to have somebody that's extremely cautious, risk management, and demands excellence. You can't do it halfway. So those are some of the things that can get out of control. So what you really need to do is, if you're not an expert at technical diving, there's some amazing instructors out there that you can refer to if you're not quite ready to handle it, but you can support it in your shop until you have an expert in your shop where you can do it right.
Love it. Would you ever consider a costume or a cape? I am tech diver guy. Bad idea.
And you know what? There's a huge amount of interest in your article, by the way, Rich. It's one of the top read articles this month. So there's other retailers that really resonated with, because they're looking at it saying, hey, and that's exactly what I think too. How do you make money doing it? Which is, I'm going to tie this into the very last speaker, Jeff. That's what he's ultimately going to get to in his next article. But this is stuff that a lot of retailers are thinking about. What can we do to expand our business? So thanks again.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, that's the next step too. For entry-level divers, they get into a little bit as a hobby, and then if you get them into the tech world, now we really got them. And I think we got them for life, almost. Good stuff, Richard, as always.
So I'm going to set up the next contributor. Dean Hollis, which was a kind gentleman that has allowed 2 articles so far to be written. First was on selling your dive shop or dive business, really, because it applies to anything. And the second series is more tactical. It really gets down to the brass tacks of what's involved. But it also is one of the most popular articles of the entire month. I mean, it really has resonated, that and the Olympics, of course, but it really has just resonated with the readers. So I just want to set that up before you launch into our next speaker.
There you go. Deanne Olson is her name. Deanne, welcome. How are you?
Really good. Thank you for inviting me here.
Absolutely. As always, you wrote an article, page 26 in the latest edition of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, Selling Your Dive Business, Part 2. And so the question is, what is a beta? I mean, it's an acronym. I don't think that's how you
I
say
thought you
it.
would like that, Deanne. I did that for you.
And why is
EBITDA.
that
Go
important in selling your dive shop?
Yeah, EBITDA is a business term and it is an acronym. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And it's a real good estimate of what the earning power of the business is. And the reason why interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization are thrown out of the earnings is because interest is going to be different for a buyer versus a seller. The tax rate's going to be different for a buyer versus a seller. Depreciation is based on fixed assets. It's going to be based on the value of those assets, and that's going to be different for a buyer and a seller. Amortization deals with goodwill. So a buyer will take the EBITDA number, the historical EBITDA number, and use that to develop the forecasted earnings for the business going forward. And generally, they'll take a multiple of that, and it's a good estimate of what you'll be paid for your business. In the scuba industry, that multiple is generally between 3 and 5 times the EBITDA number. Generally, it's between 3 and 4. It's really hard to get up to 5 on the EBITDA business, in the scuba business, but they'll use that to develop a price. There are adjustments made to the EBITDA number. For example, a lot of owners will try to run some personal expenses through the business, and it's really important that the owner communicates that to a prospective buyer. For example, you may have a spouse that has a cell phone and those expenses are run through the business, even though the spouse may not work in the business. Well, you'll want to add that back to income. You don't want to count that as an expense of the business to show the buyer the earning power of the business itself. You know, there's a lot of things that are prepared ahead of time. A lot of it can be done ahead of time as you go through the process of selling your business. Another item besides the income statement is providing balance sheets and tax returns. That's very useful for the buyer when they're analyzing the business. Fixed asset schedule is also important. A buyer is going to want to know if there's any higher valued assets that are going to be sold with the business, such as a bus, a boat, or even a vehicle. The property is also important. If you own the property the business is located on, you want to ask yourself, do I want to sell the property or do I want to be a landlord going forward and getting those lease payments each month as revenue? You also want to ask yourself, what role do you want to play in the future? You have a blank canvas when you're going through a purchase agreement. And if you want to still be involved in the business, which from a debenture standpoint, we hope the owners do stay involved in the business. You know, do you want to be a partner for a couple of years? Do you want to be an employee in the business? Or maybe you just want to retire and go move to an island. You know, debentures is very fortunate. We've had several owners that have stayed involved in the business. Don Peterson owned Aqua Sports. It was our first acquisition back in 2011. A lot of people in the scuba industry know Don. He is still teaching scuba for us in the Springfield store. And he's also one that will get into his vehicle and drive to another store to fix a compressor or something. It's important that you also look at the values of the buyer. You've spent years building relationships with customers and employees, and you want to make sure that they're well taken care of in the future. So it's important that you pick a buyer that is going to carry your legacy going forward. One thing that's really important, and it really helps with selling the business, is having well-organized accounting records. You know, one of the hardest parts about going through an acquisition is there are a lot of transactions that are what I would call in flux. There's transactions that have started, but they haven't finished. Some examples of that would be travel. If you have a trip taking off in 5 months, you might have collected deposits from the customers, but you haven't paid the live aboard or the resort yet for that particular trip. There's also service work where the customer has dropped off gear, but maybe you haven't put the labor and kits applied them against that gear. There's a lot of other things, gift cards, in-store credits, special orders, scuba classes where you've taken deposits. So one of the things that we talk about in accounting is a principle called the matching principle. And what that means is that revenue and expenses should be recognized together. And when you're going through an acquisition, I would add to that definition and say that, you know, either the seller needs to recognize all the revenue and the expenses, or the buyer needs to recognize 100% of the revenues or expenses for a particular transaction. It'd be unfair if we went back and talked about the travel trip if the seller kept the customer deposits, but the buyer was expected to pay all the expenses of the business. So, it's real important that you keep all the revenues and expenses together so that both the seller and the buyer are treated fairly throughout that transaction. Um, you know, um, if I could go on for 10 more minutes and talk about things that you could do to prepare your business for sale, what I would say is if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if you're looking to sell your business in the next year or even 3 to 5 years from now, it's never too soon to talk to industry experts, talk to your accountant, and start preparing for that sale. You can't start preparing too soon.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you. Yeah,
Deanne.
Dee, and
Yeah.
also anybody listening, if you go to our article, you can click on that page and there's a QR code, and every single author, every single contributor, that's the direct email address to them. So send her an email.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah. And Diamond Ventures, I mean, you guys have been doing a great work in the industry in this regard over the last few years. So hats off to you, Deanne, and your team over there for sure. All right.
And
Yep.
before we move on, one last thing, it's really a valuable service because you can take many retailers have spent their entire life and had a great living, but they have no idea how to make an exit from that.
Right.
They've had fun, they've everything they wanted really out of their business, but they don't want to close it down. They don't really have anybody to sell it to. I mean, it's really an amazing process that Dean has, and Deanne and Jessica have developed, where it appears to be a system that allows these. I happen to know Don Peterson personally. I was one of the only instructors in the county we lived in, and he was the closest dive shop years ago, and was just the nicest guy. And it's so cool to see that he was able to sell his business and still remain involved and active. And I think that's a secret sauce formula, to borrow from Jeff's article,
Yeah.
for really a retirement as a dive shop.
Well, they've set it up as a win-win for the
Yeah.
buyer and the seller, like she was talking about there. So, I mean,
And
that's the best kind of relationship for sure if you're going to do something like that.
And thank you again, Deanne. It's a great article. Our next contributor is our regular, standard, everyday columnist, you might say, but he happens to have the number 3rd most popular article this month.
Aha.
It really, really resonated, Dan, what you said. And, you've done a really good job over the last 8 months of building this incredible case for personal responsibility, which is mostly what it comes down to. If you really look at almost every article you've written, at the end of the day, it's personal responsibility. I loved what you did last month with the analogy of the aviation, that the flying is inherently safe. It's just merciless on mistakes. And it all comes back to the same thing you've written in this article. It's a theme. And I think it's so needed in our industry. And it's not just me. The readers are loving it. So
yeah. Dan Orr is the man. Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fine. You didn't mispronounce my last name.
Yes, he's the only one I can pronounce because it's 3 letters or less, and 2 of them are the same.
Hey, that's right.
So, who is really responsible for your safety? That's the name of the article in this month's edition. So, what can you tell us there, Dan?
Well, one thing I talked about was the Responsible Diver Program, which is really the brainchild of Dick Long. It was something that came out in the 1980s. And in fact, they actually had a huge program they were promoting. And if you look behind me in my screensaver there, or the thing to the background, you can see the logo that they were using for that program. And the idea was basically, as we talked about, the only person who truly is responsible for your safety is you. And you have to make sure that you understand that and take that responsibility. You can't say, well, somebody else is responsible for my safety. Like, for example, people may say, well, I'm diving with a dive master, so that person is responsible for my safety. Well, no, that person really is there to guide you around the dive site. But in reality, you have to make decisions that are for you, for your own safety. And the actual original program had 6 different components. One of them was diving within the limits of your own ability. The other is to evaluate the conditions before each and every dive you make, be familiar and check your equipment before each and every dive, respect the buddy system, accept responsibility for your own actions, which is the basic tenet for diver responsibility, and then also be environmentally conscious. So all of those things are part of your responsibility as a diver, and we need to accept that responsibility on each and every dive.
I think that those are words of wisdom that have been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Tip of the hat
I
there to Dick Long there too. Yeah.
Somebody had something to say.
Yeah, actually, I was going to make another comment about the fact that some people have actually, some training agencies have taken that responsible diver code that Dick created and actually developed it for their own training agency. In fact, one of them has a responsible diver code for technical diving, for recreational diving, for free diving, laying out those things that people need to be responsible for. But basically, it is your own safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, in the aviation world, I'm a pilot also, complacency kills is what the little term people use, because you've done something for the same time so many different ways and you've never had an issue with severity. You just kind of forget that one little tiny check. And I think as dive professionals, we all fall victim to that. You know, after you've had, there's people on here that have over 5,000 dives, I'm sure, in this call. You know, you just forget the little simple things. And only something as simple as the acknowledging the buddy system, because maybe you've been nothing but a dive leader for the last 5 years and you never had a buddy because you're always leading a group of people. But
Yeah.
you know, this personal responsibility is really an important theme, and it's life and death
Yeah.
Well, when
in
you
our
look
industry.
at you look at some of the data that comes from Divers Alert Network, one of the graphs that I occasionally use shows the number of dives somebody has made within a 12-month period. And so that ended up in a fatality. So on one end, you have people that have made less than 20 open water dives in their lifetime, and they're in the fatality database, partly because they don't have a whole lot of experience. But when you look at the other end, where there are people who have had more than 300 dives in a 12-month period and still ended up in the fatality database, that goes back to what you said before, and that's complacency or that normalization of deviance that we talked about in one of the other articles.
That's a great article. That was
Yeah.
a great article.
Well, and
If you,
going back to the aviation connection, there, the thing we say as pilots is you are the pilot in command. So when the
Yeah.
tower tells you to do something, a pilot is still the guy in charge of the airplane, and it's up to them to decide what course of action they're going to take, despite what the tower may say. Please do this. They're like, well, unable. I'm not going to do it because I can't.
Yeah,
You
and it
know?
doesn't really diminish the value of a buddy system because you want to share the experience with somebody. But it comes down, the bottom line is it really is your responsibility for your safety.
Yeah, good stuff.
and this applies to professionals just as much as the new diver. So
Oh, yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you, Dan, for continuing this amazing series. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next month.
All right. All right.
Oh,
Up
by
next.
the way,
Oh,
just
go ahead.
just for a little commercial here, Dan Orr has been asked to be the keynote speaker at the International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the end of this month in Grand Cayman. So
Oh.
he is going to be doing the keynote, and I would like to thank him for that great honor, and I think he's going to do a great job. I can't wait to hear his speech.
Well, thank you. I'm looking
right.
forward to it.
All right. There you go. Plan accordingly. All right. Up next, we got, Catherine Castle. What a great gal. And she's in the Azores. Did I say it right, Catherine?
You did.
Did
You
I?
did.
See,
Yes. Good job.
Us,
Family skill points for you.
Azores for us U.S. folks. But she told me right before they say Azores, and then you got to do this flare with your hands. Azores.
Something like that.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
No, go ahead.
All right, so you wrote in the latest edition, page 22, branding and marketing for your dive business, part 2. So what is a marketing plan and why is it important for a dive business or retailer? Catherine, what can you tell us?
Well, in the start of the article, I mentioned that I ask customers questions. What is your marketing plan? When I'm consulting for a dive center, what's your marketing plan? They're like, make a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, that's the goal of your business, but what are you going to do to make that happen? And they're like, sell more stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong, but what else are you going to do? Like, how are you going to get the word out? And this is what I'm talking about by branding and marketing. You are your brand. Your dive center is your brand. Everything that you say and do is your brand. But so many of us don't understand what that is to our business, what it means to our business, and then how to take that brand and push it out into the community in a way that's going to build relationships and help us actually engage not only with our customers in our community, but with their money, and to bring that into our dive center and help generate their joy and help generate our sales growth. So that's what this 2-part series was all about. It's actually building the relationships, cultivating the relationships that are transactional, because they're going to come in and they're going to buy things, they're going to consume from you, but also very relational in building their joy and also building the success of your business. So that's what it comes down to.
I like it. Yeah. And making a relationship with your customer and making that connection where you're both happy. And next thing you know, you're cashing big checks.
Okay, can I make
Exactly.
a commercial for Catherine? So DEMA is just around the corner. We got about, like we said, 70 days, 2 months. She's going to be at the show. You can find her in our booth in some fashion. So we're going to make that offer right now, Catherine, that, you are welcome to work at our booth. If you want to, we're going to get you a badge. If you want a place for people to find you, come to see us, come find Catherine at our booth, because you need to talk to her. She has got great marketing experience. And I mean, she is just touching the tip of the iceberg here with what she's been writing for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what I want to do is give our dive center customers relatable information and relatable ideas so that you can take this home to your dive center and make it work. This is not MBA BS. This is real deal, real life marketing experience that you can take home to make money in your dive center. And I'm actually really proud because this year, I've been in this industry 40 years now, 40 years. And I finally braved up enough to pitch DEMA to become a DEMA featured speaker.
Yay.
So I am presenting 2 seminars at DEMA as a DEMA featured speaker. One is a 101 level relationship building seminar. And then the second one is a business to business. It's like for business managers and owners level seminar on how to do B2B relationships within your business. And this is all branding and marketing, but we're going to go old school on some what they used to call guerrilla marketing tactics. And then we're going to combine old school, new school dance moves to sort of rock the house on what you're going to do. Because more than anything, I want our readers and listeners to feel like they have somebody out there that's got their back and is going to help them. And that's what Scuba Diving Industry Magazine is all about. You've got this pool of industry veterans we're all coming at you from a lot of different directions, basically to help you grow your business and spread more joy in this whole industry. That's what we're here for. So definitely come and find me at DEMA. I'm excited to be there this year. And you can find me at the Scuba Diving Industry Magazine booth and also on the floor. And I think the seminars are Tuesday and Thursday, but look it up on the DEMA website.
Well, if anybody can bring joy to just a quick little meeting at DEMA, it would be Catherine Castle. She's one of the friendliest and most helpful people you could ever meet in the dive industry.
I completely agree. We will have a QR sheet at our booth that will have everybody's contact information that's written for us. So if obviously people run around the show the whole time, someone wants to come by and they want to talk to Rich, just hit the QR code and they can drop an email, say, hey, I'm here at the show, where can we meet, grab a cup of coffee or whatever. So we're going to make that really easy for anybody that comes by our booth to connect with you, because we don't expect you to stand behind the booth all day long. It's impossible because you got people to see. Well, that's good too. Patty and Amber love the company.
Yeah, I want to make one more little shameless plug for my beloved husband, who's the cover model for this issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine.
Thank you for reminding us.
We have Scott Jones as a centerfold and Guy on the cover.
Right here.
Guy Garcia. He is. I'm normally the one modeling for him, so I got a special kick out of being able to submit this. And I didn't tell him I did it until it came out the other day when I let him know that he was going to have to start shaving his legs and waxing his brows and stuff. Now that he's a cover model.
Wow.
So
Thank you again. That's a great shot too.
Yes.
Thank
Good stuff, Catherine, as always. All right.
Thanks.
Batting cleanup for today's Level Up podcast. Jeff Bozanek. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and it's always fun to see everybody on this podcast.
Absolutely. And we didn't know if he was going to make it today because he was diving, as a good diver always does. But he finished up. So you just got out of the water a little while ago, huh?
Well, and actually, there's a huge thunderstorm with lots of lightning and thunder. So if you hear cracks in the background, you know what's going on.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, that's I'm in Orlando, Florida, so I can relate for sure. We got the same thing going on. but we'll get through it just the same. So, Jeff, you wrote on page 15 about rebreathers, 201, not 101, but 201, starting a rebreather program for your dive business. So what are the three most important parts of starting a rebreather program? What can you tell us?
Well, probably the most important part. 101 was last month's article where I wrote about, why people use rebreathers from an individual perspective. This month, we're moving on. And the reality is, before you can answer anything or put stuff in your program, you want to decide what it is you're after. What's your goal with implementing a rebreather program? And when we talked about the open circuit, starting an open circuit tech program in your shop, there's a lot of parallels between that and what you're doing with rebreathers. The difference is that rebreathers could be for technical divers, or they could be for recreational divers, advanced recreational divers who want to be able to use a different tool to achieve different dive goals, to be able to pursue things at a different level. And so your first decision is, who am I catering to? What's my goal in implementing a program? Probably the second thing then is, once you've decided who your target audience is, then you want to decide what kind of support or what you're planning on doing with it. And a big part of that is deciding what unit or units that you're going to be supporting. Because of the type ratings, you can't just say, I'm going to offer Scuba Pro and Aqualung and OMS. You've got to fix on one or maybe two units, because everything that you're going to be doing is going to be focused in that direction, starting from instruction, moving on through your marketing, and then your after sales support. And there is some of the materials that we have in rebreathers that are going to be universal to all of them. Everybody needs oxygen fills. Everybody's going to need absorbent. Everybody is going to need basic equipment like bailout cylinders. But the problem is that you can't train everybody on any system, unlike open circuit gear. So you need a staff support member who's going to be competent to be able to do that for you on the units that you are actually trying to focus on or support and promote in your store. And then probably the third most important thing comes down to, where are you going to go in terms of branding and marketing? And it's really interesting to me that many of the articles in this month's issue really parallel what you have to do if you're going to bring rebreathers into your dive store. You've got the infrastructure and the capital requirements that we talked about with the tech program. You've got the branding and marketing that Catherine talked about. And so this all becomes part of your decision-making process in how you're going to implement the being able to offer or provide the type of support that you need with rebreathers to your customer base.
Love it. I mean, rebreather, to me, that kind of is like the step for, the next step for entry-level divers, whether they're going into tech or going into rebreathers. Once you get them into that groove, I mean, I think you got them for life. I mean, are you with me on that, Jeff? Pretty much, too?
You may not have them for life, because people cycle out of diving just like they cycle out of every other activity.
But they'll hang with us longer.
But they're going to hang with us longer.
Because they get more bottom time that way.
You get tons more bottom time.
Right.
And the reality is, it's a